Hey guys, uh, I've really gone down a rabbit hole the past couple weeks or longer, I guess, looking into what I was calling consciousness frequencies. And I realized I'd begun modeling not really the frequencies so much as the equipment used to receive them. And I'd like to introduce that idea now. I'm calling it the shapes of consciousness. Um, so I'm going to start with the real simple one just to show you how these work. This is 5. All of these little models and figures, they're divided into two parts. Um, Basically, it's the colored toothpicks and the undyed toothpicks. And the colored toothpicks are the elements that are actually conscious. Uh, this one edge here of this tetrahedron is the conscious entity itself, that which is taking in information. Whereas the other 5, for which it's named, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those are um, basically an antenna to tune into the pattern and catch a certain frequency. Um, so they're all going to be divided like that. Some of them have multiple colors because they're kind of like different charges or different like modes of consciousness represented. But it's always going to be, um, there's going to be more of these undyed elements, or sometimes an equal number. So this whole structure, I mean, it is one whole discrete structure, as well as having these two parts. This is made of or represents what I know to call Kia, which comes from chaos magic. It's spelled QIA, and basically that's the underlying substance, which is both consciousness and what is perceived, consciousness and perception. And although I'm going to show you quite a number of these things today or soon, they uh, they're not really fixed. It's possible to convert between the perceptive and the conscious elements. And in fact, all or almost all of what I'm about to show you are things that I've personally experienced. So there's a lot of leeway, and those different states would happen in mental illness, drug use, meditation. Anything with an altered state has the potential to change that shape, or maybe to heal it, reset it. So they're not fixed, but as these are states that I'm showing you, this is not, necessarily a set object so much as a model of a state. So, I decided that I'm gonna, well, hang on a second. Yeah, I'm gonna work from the top down. The highest one that I've modeled, which I haven't actually experienced, but it's what I'm aware of as my true nature, is 777. So this shape is clearly more complicated than the other one. Most crucially, it has an internal edge. So what this actually is, uh, just as this is a tetrahedron, a four-sided, four-pointed simplex, this is the projection of a pentachoron, which is a five-sided, five-pointed simplex. But because it's a projection, we have this part in the middle that if it were an actual 5-dimensional shape, would be on the outside, just like the others. And also because it's a projection, depending upon the orientation of the supposed real thing in fiveness, this that middle edge is not really fixed. Right now I'm showing this as just a stable thing that can turn and just kind of manipulate however. But in matter of fact, whenever we're dealing with a shape of consciousness that's actually a projection of a higher dimensional shape, you have to be really careful about orientation, because it's possible to make any of these external edges be the internal edge. So it looks like this, and I assert that this is kind of how it should look to stay stable. And of course we'll have to there's some element of spin either around these or like this to keep it upright. But it's kind of essential to this model in its three-dimensional incarnation like this, that this blue part is on the outside. So these three on the outside are perceiving all sides of this on the inside. And I wanted to point out there's this guy who made these little metal puzzles with like telescoping rods. It's called the Chronos puzzle, Chronos, and in a couple of other puzzles that you can use to manipulate a projection just like this, but all of these can be kind of pivoted and change length and stuff to prove that the whatever's in the middle on the inside, it can be rotated to any of them through changes in orientation of the object that is being projected to form this. So that was kind of introductory, preliminary stuff that applies to all of them. But let me explain why this is 777. Basically, let's start with the basics, I guess, about the numbers, the names. The digits used, the 7 refers to how many undyed pieces there are. So you can see there's 6 triangles on the outside of this inner part coming off of one rod in the center. So that's 7. But it's 777 because you get to kind of absorb or observe that pattern 3 times. You have this point of view, this point of view, and this point of view. So, and another interesting thing about these is that kind of depending on how you're accounting for time and space-time and dimensionality, you can think of this as either happening, the 3 sevens, as either being in sequence or being all at once in parallel. So if you're thinking of it, and I find that the names of them are easier to come up with when you're thinking of them as in sequence, serial. So basically, I take this one, I take this one, I take this one, points of view. So when I'm taking this point of view, I am seeing everything that's inside here, but I'm also kind of intuiting or feeling with my heart these two that I can't so directly see. And it works the same one for all 3 of them. So each one is capable of sensing or taking into account or perceiving all 7. So that's why it's 777. And if they're all happening at once, that kind of leads to, well, I imagine it to lead to like a more stable shape, something that is fairly strong and static, like these little wooden things are. Whereas if you're going around, I mean, you just have to keep going all the time, you know. Um, so I also wanted to mention with 777 that all of the other models that I'm presenting today are subsets of this one, which is, you could argue, basically that's why I'm able to adopt them all, because this is me underlyingly, and I can sort of ignore or hone in or um, you know put aside different parts and figure out these different shapes. Um, that being said, that doesn't mean that this is the highest. Um, it's the highest that I need, but there's 888, 999, and I'm sure there's an infinite number of these, as we kind of collectively, cosmically ascend in dimensionality, get closer to the infinite. There's, there's always going to be more, which is wonderful. So, yeah, so that's 777. Here's 666, the number of the beast. I, I talking about myself briefly. So this is the only one that I truly am, which means that all the others I can't adopt permanently. They're kind of unstable or temporary, or sometimes even really painful and scary. So and in my vision, when I'm working with ones that are scary, I often see a lot of red, hot, and hot color, red, yellow. So I made this red like that, kind of just to portray that experience of mine. Not because this is, really an evil frequency, but it's unsettling to me, and it's unsettlingly easy to fall into, because you'll notice, disregarding the colors, the only difference is in here there's a conscious element in the center, whereas in here there's a perceptive element in the center. So, so they're very similar, very related. So this one and all the multiples of 3 they seem to be a little wonky. Not wonky, that's judgmental. They behave a little differently. They have some shared characteristics. So this one, having as it does this, upright post of consciousness in the middle, I think of this as like, grabbing onto that pole and like swinging around the pole to hit these 3. So this one's always on, and these are visited in sequence. That's the easiest way for me to think about it, and kind of represents how it feels more unstable, because it's just kind of really it's whirlwindy. It's freewheeling. It feels unstable to me. And I'm talking a little too much about myself, but I think this is important stuff to get out there, even though it's not my favorite to talk about, so I'm kind of doing the best I can right now. So, once again, you'll see that there are 6 pieces that are undyed, hence the name 666, and there are 3 points of view by which you can obtain the 6. So, yeah, moving on, I guess. When we get to the 5s and 4s and 3s, which we're about to now, it becomes a little trickier, because those 3 are the ones that are kind of like enmeshed now, that are all affected by the fall, that are all in play in our current reality. And it becomes harder for me to determine, is this serial, is this parallel, is this 555, or is this just 5? Um, and I think that the key to that is time. The fact that we have time here, here in fourness versus eternity. So basically, though, to my understanding, fourness is sort of the base, the real substrate of um, threeness and five. Not I have trouble. I'm trying to sort out when to say 555 and when to say fiveness because they're different. It's a whole different paradigm, and really I'm more comfortable with my own words, but I'm sharing with these because I've inadvertently spent like 3 really crazy weeks figuring it all out, and I think people are going to be able to connect with this immediately if they have their own experience of those terms, whereas nobody but me has an experience with the term fiveness, So, um, but so I'm kind of trying to get all these out all at once so that I can kind of step back from it, take a breather, because it's a little crazy making for me. And there are plenty of people who can take this and run with it, so that's good. So I was about to talk about right. So 333, 444, 555, and I was sort of explaining that of those three, 444 is kind of the realist, or the cradle from which are birthed both 333 and 555, as well as the many degenerate or ego-filled or stuck or not spinning versions of 444. But as far as I can tell, this is 444 as it really is or ought to be. So just like the others, the 4 refers to the number of toothpicks of edges in each path, and the fact that there's 444 indicates that there are 3 such paths. So basically what I've done here is I have constructed this so that there are 3 apparent right angles, 3 pairs of edges of the same color that are opposite to each other and orthogonal but non-intersecting. And that's important, but let me just show you how basically one would, just like we were cycling through 3 different points of view for the 6 and 7. This cycles through 3 different points of view, but each point of view is 2 disjoint orthogonal pieces. So the blues, the greens, the yellows, the blues, the greens, the yellows, the blues, the greens, the yellows, and it's really got a rhythm to it. Like it works. I've seen recently 444 being described as flow, which to me didn't ring true at all until I discovered this model of it. Because there is a certain flow that's kind of catchy, kind of necessary. The only way that 444 is tolerable is with that flow. And it's really easy for folks like me, or really folks like all of us, to stop that flow, to get caught up. So I intentionally made these kind of friendly, beloved colors to me, because I was tempted to make it red, white, and blue. Blue shift, red shift, neutral. Because um, being bipolar and just being human, being having a often fallen experience of the world, I'm really kind of likely to, or I'm really prone to taking. Let me silence that. I don't want to be interrupted again. I'm really sorry. So I'm really prone to uh, having opinions about them and getting stuck on them and not wanting that flow to continue. So, uh, like I said, I originally was thinking, this is red, white, and blue. The red's, dangerous, scary, evil, and I want to avoid that. And the blue is excitement, joy, kind of revving up, um, a lot, big, fast bliss. Um, so, and then the whites, the undyed ones. I mean, that would just be boring, basically. So, so I think everybody, all of us living in fourness. I should be careful how I say this, but wish I hadn't had an interruption. Uh, so how was I saying that? Yeah. Never mind. I'm just I'm just gonna move on because I kind of lost my flow, just like I was talking about, which is a risk.